Welcome to the NFL Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guys Mo Nawara in the Midwest and Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. The gang is all here for you guys as we are looking at some playa props here coming up in this NFL Sunday. Definitely want to make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. We're bringing you these props each and every week of this regular season in the NFL. Also head to TheLines.com. Nate, Mo, and the gang, great written content for you guys up there all season long. Nate also puts these picks on there. And we have our great odds finder tool where you can go ahead and make sure you're shopping those lines to the best of your ability across U.S. sportsbooks. We're going to be giving you a passing, receiving, and rushing prop each, so 3 for each of those categories. Nate, let's go ahead and kick things off here with passing props.
Yeah, Taylor Heineke has been winning with Washington. You got to assume that will continue here against Houston, but it will continue with a very run-heavy approach. That's Washington's obvious path to success here, and Houston's the worst rushing defense in the NFL. They gave up 182 yards per game, so there's really no reason for them to drop Heineke back much more than the last couple games where he only averaged 180 passing yards. I mean, Houston has good corners to shadow Terry McLaurin. Houston's 23rd in pace. This game is going to be one you want to shy away from, I think, at least for Washington's offense, because they should be in control after being so physical against Philly. You got to think they own the line of scrimmage here. Heineke's only completing 56% of his passes the last two. He's not, the knock on him is that he doesn't have an NFL arm. They're not going to stress him by asking him to throw to the boundary and run some sort of 2-minute drill in this situation unless we're suddenly behind. He basically only got over this prop 215 yards with a miraculous late drive against Indy. Otherwise, he's been below that in all 4 of his starts. So I think it's a pretty easy under for me.
Mo, you're shrugging your shoulders.
This is a low number. I don't know if I can go under this number. This is scary.
Even for Mr. Heineke. Against okay, no, I'm with it. I'm supporting Nate just because of the fact that Houston's going to be running the ball, or Houston's allowed teams to run the ball, and that's what you expect this team to do in this game with probably 3 running backs at their disposal against the Texans. So I can see it happening. But yeah, under 215, I believe I was told recently that anybody can come in and get a 200 yards of the NFL. If you get 200, maybe you get 216. But this does seem like an opportunity to take an under if you want one. I know you're going under on another quarterback here who can run the ball very well in Justin Fields, but maybe not passing yards wise, as we've seen.
Yeah, it hurts to go against my guy here. I've been leading the charge on Justin Fields since before he was drafted. Okay, so yeah, this hurts me because I've been his number one cheerleader, but under 177.5 passing yards looks pretty good to me. He's only averaging around 150, even since his breakout game against the Patriots, which is basically when Chicago started to just fly over on every game. He's still averaging 155 passing yards in these last 4 games. My one concern here is basically that Atlanta, I think, is going to invite him to pass much more than some of these other recent opponents, like Dolphins, Dallas. These teams are blitz heavy and or bringing premium pass rushes to the table. That's flushing him out of the pocket a little more. Neither one of those things is true in this game. I think Atlanta is just going to want to sit back in a zone. They've been playing a ton of zone. They led the league in zone this past week, I should say. And I think that's going to invite the Bears to pass, but reading the field and going through his progressions has been kind of the weak point of Justin Fields' game. And he also has some question marks in his receiving core. Cole Kmet has been his number one red zone target. Cole Kmet is a little bit banged up. It looks like he missed practice on Wednesday. I do think he's going to play, but maybe not 100%. And then AJ Terrell's coming back, and he might be locking up Darnell Mooney here. So I don't think a lot of great opportunities for Fields to go to his top options here. I think he's going to have to go through his progressions. I don't know if he's going to do very well doing that. The market's already hammering the under in this game, and I'm just fading what I think is a lot of market excitement around one of my favorite quarterbacks here, but I think his numbers might take a step back this week.
Yeah, I mean, with Fields, like you're tempted to take over on the rushing, even if it was close to 170, before you might feel good even about the passing. I know Atlanta's defense also, while they might not blitz, like you said, I think that's a huge part of it, obviously, as well, in them sitting back and waiting for the run game and all the trickery that they do pre-snap as well there. So I'm gonna just go over to finish things up here with a guy who, I mean, we talk about all the time, Danger Russ, whatever you want to call him, Russ Wilson and those Broncos. 225.5 passing yards. Can consider over on this one for the sake of the fact that they're playing the Raiders, and pretty much the sake of the fact that they're playing the Raiders. We kind of expected a bit more from him last week against the Titans as well. We see that defense actually in Tennessee looking incredible, obviously, so maybe we need to give them a bit more props. But in this one, the Raiders are 32nd in DVOA pass defense, 31st adjusted sack rate there as well. They're not really going to bring much pressure. They're not really able to stop much once they are not able to accumulate that pressure. Russ, when he did play against them in week 4, went over this with 237 and a season best 125 passer rating. That was on the road there in Vegas as well. That far and away best for the season. Tennessee last week, I mean, he came through passing wise, I suppose, right? Like we saw them rushing that rush defense for Tennessee really be the reason there. I think the weak pass offense for Vegas is similar in its effect, right? In allowing Russ to pass a bit more and you know, being able to take this team on at home in the games that they've won, right? In the ones that they've won, including that really ugly looking one against San Francisco early on in the season. But you saw Russ able to control the game and get you know, a nicer sort of ADOT than he's had in some of these other games as well. So Nate, what do you think about my 225 passing yards over for Russ? You feel pretty good about that one?
As long as we don't have to bet on the Broncos to finish drives, I mean, that actually kind of helps with your yardage, because then they're just chasing points every time. That's how he got to 285 last week, even though they finished the game with 6 punts and a pick. So, yeah, I mean, Mo nailed this one against Tennessee. I think you got a kind of a similar situation. I mean, against a much worse pass defense, not necessarily a great run defense, but Vegas right now reeling. It's hard to trust. You know, this could be a real get right spot for Russ against this coaching staff that doesn't seem to have a clue.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over to rushing props and segue into a coaching staff that's doing a much more capable job than Matt Rule, who was shown the door, but basically by just leaning on a pretty good run game, a good offensive lines, 10th in power run blocking, and adjusted line yards. I'm talking about the Carolina Panthers, who might be overlooked against Lamar, and the Ravens, who are coming off a bye. Carolina coming off a mini bye after racking up 252 on the ground against Atlanta last Thursday. Deontay Foreman, of course, leading that charge with 31 carries. I mean, Chuba Hubbard and Blackshear mixed in for 11 carries behind him. They were a distant second and third. Hubbard still dealing with an ankle sprain, and he just didn't look nearly as effective as Foreman, who, I mean, really looks like a good runner with vision, shifty, hits the hole, and now he's facing a Ravens defense that's allowed 92 rushing yards per game on 19 carries the last 7, 19th in DVOA rush defense. Their defensive line is 31st against power run blocking. And I mean, it's just a similar formula that you see all over the NFL now when you have a dangerous offense on the other end. Pound the rock, try to get 3 or 4 yards per carry, and get Foreman over 50.5 rushing yards. I think that's definitely in the likely outcomes here as Carolina tries to figure out a way to win this game.
I think I do like this one. I've been impressed with Carolina's run blocking in the games I've watched them. So I think he's got a chance. The thing that would concern me is the game script getting away from them and going down big. But I personally don't think that's going to happen because I like the Panthers to cover here. So given that, I think there's definitely a correlation between that and having some success on the ground here. Obviously, if they don't and they go down big, this could get ugly. But I do think this could be a decent spot for Foreman.
Well, and to that game theory, if they don't go down big, that would mean that we're probably not seeing the first 2 to 3 drives for the Ravens with those gashing 15 to 20 yard run plays with Lamar / 15, 20 yard pass plays to Mark Andrews. That's the recipe for Baltimore's success consistently in the early goings of games, right? We know they like to jump out to those leads. If that doesn't happen and they can't establish that run game, then yeah, you feel a lot better about Carolina's run game. And Mo, maybe your prop here, hashtag segue to Lamar Jackson's under rushing prop.
Yeah, it's always scary taking a Lamar Jackson rushing under because he could rip off a 50-yarder at any moment. But I do have some respect for this Carolina defense. I think they've been pretty solid, and more importantly for me is the way they've been playing and who they've been playing. So 2 of their last 3 games have come against the Falcons. They also have a quarterback who you really don't want to allow to scramble in Marcus Mariota. And the Panthers have done a good job against him. So they only allowed, I believe it was 86 total yards in those 2 games to Mariota rushing. And they're approaching it like they don't want him to run. And I think they can just port over that same game plan here against the Ravens because they were among the league leaders also in zone rate, running out 85% zone in both of those games. They're trying to keep eyes on the quarterback. And that's not too far from their regular scheme because they are around 80% for the season. So it's something they're familiar with, and it's working, and it's not working for other teams because they're not doing it. The Ravens are among the league leaders in man percent seen, according to what PFF breaks down. So I think they'll be well prepared for Lamar Jackson's running. And even though I think the market's kind of pricing that in here, you are seeing a number that is about 10 yards below his season average. I still think I am leaning to the under here.
Yeah, like you said, always terrifying. How sharp do you feel in this one? I think you can feel sharp enough because of the reasons that you gave, really. And what we're hoping for here is that game script that you laid out is that sort of manifests. Because if things start to unravel early on for that Carolina defense, obviously then you get a little bit nervous there, especially if they build a lead due to the Ravens and continue to run the ball. But I'm going to go for an under here as well, gentlemen, to finish off the rushing props. Najee Harris and the Steelers. They are taking on the Cincy defense that has looked really, really good. They held Najee to 23 rushing yards on 10 attempts in that first game. That was actually pretty surprising, but did not work out didn't work out for Najee as well as it did for the Steelers. In 3 versus Cincy so far, in his career, 29 rushing yards a game. So that was pretty much on par for what he's been doing earlier in the season when they played. 2.7 yards per carry. Obviously not going to get it done. That's Cincy defensive line ranks 6th in running back yards per carry. They've held 3 straight opposing running back for less than 4 yards per carry as well. And even in that beatdown at Cleveland, nothing was efficient, right? For the way that Cleveland really ran the ball as much. It was a lot of sort of playing off of the run game, and Jacoby Brissett doing some nice stuff. So I think in this one, for Najee, you look at his game log a bit as well, and the teams that he did manage to get to the 55, 60 yard mark at least, which was only I believe 4 times this season, was against teams who are much, much better at defending the pass, or there were a ton of sort of shootouts in games like Miami, obviously unable to run against a team like Tampa Bay. So once you start looking at these better run defenses, which I think you can consider Cincy right now when they have that healthy D line, then I think you feel pretty good about them withholding Najee's ability to run, especially if Cincy's just flying through the air and scoring points all game.
Yeah, Cincy's going to be fired up for this one after losing week 1. They're coming off a bye. They are really talented up front, 6th in RB yards, the defensive line. And, the name we haven't mentioned yet is Jaylen Warren, who's just eating into Harris's work, 43% of the snaps and 12 touches in a win last week. And I do not expect the Steelers to win in this spot. So I think negative game script means more work for Warren, who I would look at the over 13.5 receiving yards, maybe 24.5 rush yards. He's got 65 yards through the air on 6 catches his last 2, averaging 5.8 yards per carry, much more efficient than Harris. So it's wind shifting there. Switching over to receiving props. This is a scary one after Justin Jefferson just draw all this praise along with the Vikings for an incredible performance against the Bills. I'm ready to fade the Vikes though. I've had enough of this they're
What's
number
gonna
one in
happen?
the power rankings by default now. Like, come on. Kirk Cousins in a national TV game at 425 against Dallas. You know what's going to happen. Micah Parsons is going to be all over him. Dallas is the number one pass defense. Trayvon Diggs is allowing under 3 catches per game in his coverage. You look at some of the top guys they faced. Jamar Chase went 5-54-0. Terry McLaurin 2 for 15. A.J. Brown 5 for 67. So Jefferson, I mean, we saw after his huge week 1 too, a couple opponents just sell out to stop him. Just be like, all right, let's see what Adam Thielen has, because obviously we need to bracket this guy. Dallas has basically sold out to stop him. He has 107 total yards in 2 meetings with Dallas. So I'm willing to go under here, and bonus, I think under Dalvin Cook, 79.5 rushing yards. I don't think the Vikings offense is going to have that much success here.
Be a nice little SGP there, I think, because those have negative correlation together. So you get a nice payout on that one if you can parlay those where applicable. Definitely scary to fade, but man, Kirk Cousins. I believe I remember reading his passer rating under pressure falls like 30 points, and I could see a rough day for this Vikings offense in this spot.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, Adam Thielen, however you want to say it, has not picked up the slack when Jefferson's getting bracketed the way he is. So that would also lead to this. I'm also tired of it. It's like, when is this going to end? How are they? Do they have one loss this season? I think when they were down 27-10 last week, we were all like, okay, here it is. And then whatever happened after that. So I think it's a good spot here at 94.5. I kind of thought it might even be a little bit higher, but like you said, that Dallas defense and pass defense is brutal right now. So we're going back to you, Mo, for a guy that you want to talk about, I know consistently, Mr. Nico Collins. You're going over for him. Tell us why you're still riding the Nico Collins bandwagon.
Yeah, I almost put DPJ, my guy, in here again, but I don't know. All the books don't have that one up yet, so I'm not really sure what's going on with that one. I don't know if they've adjusted because his number is still in the low 40s from what I can see, but decided to go with Nico Collins over 41.5 here. The market still thinks Brandon Cooks is WR1 here. He has a total, I believe it was 12 yards higher than Nico Collins. But Nico Collins played more snaps, ran more routes, had more targets, and more targets per route run than Cooks last week. I think that's kind of been at least close for the last month. So I don't think this is like an isolated incident. I don't see why his total is 12 yards below Cooks here. When they're facing a Washington team that is very strong also against the run. 4th in EPA per play allowed, 5th in success rate allowed, but I still think these cornerbacks are very beatable. I think they're not very good, to be honest, and the good games they have stopping opposing passing games are, to me, a credit to the coaching staff and the pass rush. So this is a pretty low number. Collins is averaging 50 yards per game this year. He's playing indoors. I think as long as Davis Mills just doesn't get stuck in an avalanche of sacks here, he should go over this number.
And that's the recipe for him not hitting that, is that defensive line just pummeling Davis Mills all game. So if he can stand up at all, 41.5 for Nico still seems a bit small, as you said, as he still seems to have definitely lapped Cooks at this point. So finishing things off for today, guys, Paris Campbell, household name out of Ohio State, as we all know, over 36.5 receiving yards on those Indianapolis Colts. I love our logic for this, gentlemen. Matt Ryan is starting again because whatever. 24 catches on 32 targets and 203 yards in Matt Ryan's last 3 starts for Paris Campbell. Indy's going to be throwing expectedly plus 7.5 in this one. And look, Matt Ryan, what I love about this is we talk about Matt Ryan not really being able to throw to the edges there, and that Paris Campbell's playing in the slot, so good for him that Matt Ryan can keep the ball sort of away from those pick sixes that he's oft likes to throw when he goes sideways with his ball. So 69% of the time Paris Campbell is in the slot rate, which is the highest in the NFL. So you can rely on him being in there. Gets plenty of yards after the catch, 19th in the league, actually, a 92% route participation. So like this is the stuff we're looking for. If you're going to make his his prop at 36.5 receiving yards, and he's going to be out there that amount in the slot, that amount, right, with really an 85% catchable target rate as well. I mean, he's running some pretty good routes, getting himself nice and open. So I do feel like this is a pretty good opportunity to get a really low total and a Colts team that I don't love watching or supporting, but I'll take the money and value where I can get it.
Yeah, and it's been bet up 1 yard to 37.5 because other people are obviously making this easy connection here that with Matt Ryan back under center, it's a professional offense, and as good as the Eagles are, C.J. Gardner-Johnson's an excellent slot corner. You can't hold down a slot wide receiver for an entire game under these current NFL rules. Like they will get open. You will get high percentage routes, and that's why Campbell's getting his numbers with Ryan. And just to touch on Nico Collins, yeah, Brandon Cooks was very disgruntled, right, about not getting traded, and it seems like the team is basically like putting him on ice now. So Nico Collins is suddenly trending up. That's why I love that pick from Mo. Yeah.
Absolutely, guys. That is all the time we have for you in this one. Continue to follow along. Make sure you're liked and subscribed to that page. We're bringing you these NFL player props each and every week of this regular season. So until we see you next, happy betting.